So you're looking to play Dromai Ash Artist in Flesh and Blood. And a lot of people and a lot of content creators are telling you to buy a Flamescale Furnace, a $125 armor piece for this hero. Why? Well, I'm here to tell you all the tips and tricks used for Flamescale Furnace and why it is so imperative that a hero like Dromai gets this chess piece. Welcome on in, Dragon Folk. I hope you are all having a fantastic day. I know I am. My name is Ashen Wings, and today we are talking about none other than the expensive chess piece that is Flamescale Furnace. Now, I know there's a lot of people who say that this is a necessary chess piece for Dromai. You need this legendary. It's just Dromai's best piece of armor, and they're right. Unfortunately, Dromai is one of the very few heroes that actually requires a legendary, essentially, in this case. There are budget options, but they are absolutely nowhere near as positive as the legendary chess piece that is Flamescale Furnace. And we're going to talk about why here in today's video. So I'm going to give you an example of why that is, right? I'm not just going to tell you that it is the best chess piece for Dromai, because that doesn't make any sense. If you're a new player and you're trying to play Dromai and you have no idea and you're just like, yeah, obviously I want to, shill for this company, so like I'm going to tell you that you need to buy this $150 chess piece or whatever because that's how the game works and you're going to be poor forever. That's obviously not what I'm trying to get into, right? I want to tell you why it's important that you have this chess piece and the ways you can use it to better your game plan, essentially. So, how does Flamescale Furnace work? Well, first, in order to find out how Flamescale Furnace works, we need to remember how Dromai works. Now, Dromai, her ability, as you can tell here, is whenever you pitch a red card, create an Ash token. That is this little guy down here. This Ash token allows people to, make dragons. It allows you to make dragons. You need these in order for your dragons to be invoked, right? If you have dragons in your hand right now and you have no Ash to summon them, you cannot invoke a dragon, which means that you need to find multiple ways to create Ash in order for you to have one available for when you draw into your dragons. So, again, pitching a red gets us an Ash, and that is the whole purpose here. And we're going to note why it's important for Flamescale Furnace in the first place. So, let's talk about the effects of Flamescale Furnace and what it does. So first, we have to look at the base level, the very base level of Flamescale Furnace, right? Get the effect out of here. Let's look at the base level of it. The base level is that it blocks for 2 and has Temper. Temper says down at the bottom there, when the combat chain closes, if this defended, put a -1 counter on it. Then if it has 0 defense counters, destroy it. So this comes in at 2 defense, which is pretty good. That's about on rate that we want it to have. And that allows you to block out some damage that may be lethal down the road. Of course, it doesn't just block 2. Technically, it blocks 3 damage. Because, much like Battle Worn, when this blocks something like, let's say, a Debilitate, right? Let's just forget about the Crush ability on Debilitate right now. When this blocks something like Debilitate, you are giving it a 2 defense, right? Like you're blocking 2 of that damage plus whatever cards you might have in your hand in order to block that out as well, right? So blocking is important here, and Flamescale Furnace helps you block with your equipment. Now, obviously, you don't want to block with your equipment too early, but it is a concept to have there in case you absolutely needed to block something and you had nothing else to block with. Normally, you're blocking on-hit abilities, so something like Crush is a on-hit, right? They have to deal 4 or more damage to that, so that is a perfect opportunity. If you're not able to do anything with your hand or you're trying to save cards in your hand, using your armor is important. So having your armor be available to block is good. Now, when this blocks, right, it gets that -1 counter. I just like to kind of put this guy on there. And so now it only blocks for 1 the next time you defend with it. So that is why, in theory, it blocks for 3. Now we need to look at its actual ability, right? Once per turn instant, you pay a resource, gain a resource for each red card in your pitch zone. Activate this ability only if you played a red card this turn. So playing a red card does, in fact, as it's said in the in the scene, playing a red card turns on Flamescale Furnace, right? Currently, it is just offline, but this turns it online. That's probably a better way to say it. Turns it online, makes it online, so you're able to actually use its ability when you play a red. So, for instance, right, you look at something like playing Sweeping Blow, right? You go into play Sweeping Blow. Sweeping Blow costs 1 resource. So, let's just say we put Dunebreaker Senpai in the pitch zone. That will get us an Ash for Dromai, and then an Ash for Sweeping Blow, giving us 2 Ash there, which is a good turn, right? But now you're thinking to yourself, well, the only thing I have left in my hand is a Sigil of Solace and a Command and Conquer, if you happen to have these, right? Or really, any 2-cost ability is perfect, right? Ember Moss Senpai can also be used in the same scenario in case you don't have a Command and Conquer. Ember Moss Senpai comes in for 8. So it does have Phantasm, but this is definitely a more terrifying card, and you're probably going to see this more in a higher level play. So this is why I'm using Command and Conquer. So Sweeping Blow gives us go again, naturally, and then we go ahead and move on to our next one. Now, here's what you're probably thinking, right? I only have a red card in hand. I can't play Command and Conquer because I don't have enough in my hand to pitch for it, right? You need to pitch 2. But this is where Flamescale Furnace comes into play. Because you played a red card, you can then, after this resolves, right? After this effect resolves and you're moving on to the next part of the chain and the damage goes off, you can then activate Flamescale Furnace because a once per turn instant, you played a red card. You can then pay a resource, pitch for a resource to gain resources for each red card in your pitch zone. So now what you can do is you can activate Flamescale Furnace to pitch this Sigil of Solace to your pitch zone, right? So now you've got 2 red cards in your pitch. That will give you 2 floating mana, which is done by this. 2 floating mana. So now you've got 2 floating mana here in your resources, which then you can use to finish your turn off by playing Command and Conquer with those last 2 resources. Therefore, giving you a more powerful turn and allowing you to utilize more resources to your higher power cards. This can also be used in the situation for something like Uvia or any of the sort. Not to mention that when you activated Flamescale Furnace and you pitched this red, you also got another Ash. So in just this turn alone, you've gotten 3 Ash, 3 damage probably, or they've blocked it, right? You're essentially threatening 9 damage, 6 of that, which is when it hits, you destroy their arsenal and they can't play defense reactions in response to this. So it's a pretty powerful turn for Dromai to do something like this, right? And again, the same thing could be said. You could summon a dragon here for 2. You could summon whatever the hell it might be for 2. You can do that, and that will be utilized. Now, that is a really, really great use of Flamescale Furnace, right? You're essentially pitching reds to then stack reds in your pitch and then get additional resources based off the amount that you have pitched. So it's very cool. I like that use of Flamescale Furnace. That is another huge reason why it is such a powerful card in this deck, right? In Dromai alone, being able to, at any point, whenever you play a red card, pitch something and get, as long as if you pitch a red, you get an Ash. So you're going to usually want to pitch reds for this. So you pitch a red, get an Ash. Now, here's the other cool thing about this, and I'll go ahead and just show you what it's like as an example right now. All right, so let's go ahead and show off a different scenario here, right? We just ended our last turn by putting a Sink Below into our arsenal, getting prepared for a big attack coming in from the Bravo, right? We are prepared. But we draw, we have 0 ash, right? No ash for some reason. We just have not made ash yet. Has not happened. We put the Sink Below into the arsenal, and we drew 4 cards. We drew into 4 dragons. 4 of them. That's a Dromai that you don't have to pay anything for, a Miragai for 1, an Azvali for 0, and a Dominia for 4, right? This hand sucks comparatively, right? And this is obviously not a very, very good thing for us. So what do we do in this situation, right? Well, what we can do is essentially use our defense reaction to our benefit. Red Sink Below is something that Dromai plays a lot of usually, and Red Sink Below is just something that you're going to see often. Defense reactions are, in fact, cards that you play. You do not just block with these like you would with something in your hand. You have to play them like an actual card. So, we're at 0 ash. Our opponent is coming in with a Debilitate, right? It's coming in, if it deals 4 or more damage to a hero, their first attack during the next turn has -2. We obviously don't want anything bad happening to our hero, right? We don't want anything like that. We don't want to get 8 damage off on us, right? So what do you do in this situation, right? Well, if you don't want to take, if you don't want it to deal 4 or more, you can't just block with your Sink Below. You need to block with something else. So let's say, for instance, maybe you want to block with Dominia, right? Dominia comes in, blocks for 3, and now you move to your reactions. In your reaction step, if they have no attack reactions or anything of the sort, right? Let's just assume they don't have a pummel here. You can then go to defense reactions and choose Sink Below to defend. Now, you can do one of 2 things here, right? You can take one of these dragons in your hand via Sink Below, and you can put it to the bottom of your deck and draw a new card. So let's say, for instance, we wanted to do that. We'll go ahead and just take Miragai, flip it. I'll just assume, I'm not going to put it down there just yet. I'll draw a new card, and here we have Burn Them All, right? This is the card that we drew via Sink Below. Now, it is a red card, but again, we don't have any ash, and this is not going to generate us any ash. So at that point, it's pretty null and void here. So the Sink Below was played. And that's right, you guessed it, because we played a red card, even though it is just a defense reaction, we are playing it. Defense reactions are played. They are not just, brought from the hand or brought from arsenal up to defend. So when you play a red, Flamescale Furnace goes online. And then you can utilize its ability. So now at this point, what you can do is in response, right? Let's say you drew, again, something that just was not going to help you. You can, in response to you playing this Sink Below, you can pitch for Flamescale Furnace, getting you 1 floating resource here, which is not going to make much of a difference on, in the grand scheme of things here. Let me just pop that on there. So in the grand scheme of things, it does not really matter, right, how much floating you have here, because it's not your turn, right? Your opponent's coming into attack. So what happens is when you pitch for Flamescale Furnace, you get 1 floating, but you did pitch a red, which means that you get to use Dromai's ability to make an ash. Now, when it is your turn, these dragons are actually useful. You can use them, and that's the important part here. So let's say this all gets cleaned up, right? We go ahead and we flip those, or not flip those. What am I doing here? Put those over there. So now it's your turn, and you've got a Dromai and you've got an Azvali on the board, right? But only 1 ash. You only have 1 ash here, which is a little unfortunate because obviously you'd like to summon both of these dragons. But you have ash, which means you can still do whatever you need be. So what you can do here is you can play your Azvali, right? Go ahead and, you need the different state of it. That's a Kyloria. There it is. There's the Azvali. So you make the Azvali. It costs you 0 resources because it's a 0-cost dragon. This ash goes away. Now, again, you played a red card. So you can now use Flamescale Furnace's ability to pitch this Dromai, getting you an Ash and 1 floating resource. So you see how that cycle just keeps happening? You're essentially able to always keep an Ash online as long as you have a red card in hand that you don't use, or maybe you don't want to use it yet. You want to get, and maybe you want to pitch stack it or something of the sort. So this allows you to come in for 2 and 1 Arcane, which is already more than what the Debilitate would have come in for, because you blocked it for 7. So 2 physical, 1 Arcane, and yeah, obviously you're going up against a Bravo, so they could pop it, but that's not the point here. That's a different video. So now you're starting your next turn with an Ash, which is really, really good. So that means that if you draw into another hand full of dragons, you're not going to feel as bad about it because you're going to at least have an Ash up. So that way you can do something, right? So like in this case, right, we obviously drew some good stuff, but now you have an Ash that's up, right? You have 1 Ash and you can utilize that to your best ability. The same thing can also be said for instants. Now, this is something that will give all of your dragons go again with Dromai's second ability by playing a red card. So pretty much red cards are the thing that make your whole deck go, right? And Flamescale Furnace certainly helps in making things go. So again, let's say you're stuck in a situation where you draw into these cards, you have no Ash, you have a Sigil of Solace in hand, a Miragai, a Kyloria, and a Sink Below, right? Not really much you can do in that regard, especially on your turn. You're gonna have to then play this, and this costs 0, so you can't pitch for it. The Sink Below is a defense reaction, so you can't pitch for it, and you can use it, much like the way we just showed earlier on in the video. And that is another thing I'm going to explain with instants too. So if, for instance, you're on, no pun intended, you're on your opponent's turn, right? Your opponent comes in and does whatever they need to do. They deal their damage, whatever. You then, at the end of their turn, can play Sigil of Solace, which will gain you 3 life as an instant, but it's also a red, which then allows you to activate Flamescale Furnace to pitch a red from your hand to make an Ash. And then when it's your turn, instead of doing that on your turn, you can instead do that on your opponent's turn. And that way you can utilize it to the best of your ability. So instance, you can also do this on your opponent's turn. It's very, very good. And then this, of course, will go under here. It'll be the beginning of your turn. Now you have an Ash that's up, thanks to Flamescale Furnace from your last turn, and you can go ahead and play that Kyloria, pitching the Sink Below, which, of course, will then lose you an Ash because of Kyloria, but then gain you an Ash because you pitched a red. So your Ash will stay the same, Kyloria will stay on the board, you can go ahead and swing in with Kyloria for 4, yada yada, right? So that is the concept behind Flamescale Furnace. It's not so much that it's just a block 3 chess piece, right? It quite literally can get you Ash at any time. Anytime it can get you Ash. It is so incredibly important because it can get you Ash on your opponent's turn. It can get you Ash on your turn. It can help build your resources so you can play higher cost cards on your turn. It literally helps you generate resources pretty much for free because it costs a resource to put it into the pitch zone or to activate it, right? And then you can have up to 2, sometimes depending on your hand, even 3 floating resources in the pitch zone, which is really, really good if you're playing anything like Nekrias or Vincerikai and stuff like that. You're going to be able to make that stuff happen. Now, what we need to look at now is something that I know, obviously, Flamescale Furnace, it is a really, really good chess piece. This is like the chess piece I recommend for everybody because it's just good. It's the chess piece for Dromai. But I understand that $125, $130 is a lot for cardboard. And a lot of people just getting into Flesh and Blood for the first time do not want that. So, what I am going to show you is a alternate example here that is way, way worse, but it can help in a certain amount of time. And it's almost kind of the same thing. So what we have here is Ironhide Plate. Ironhide Plate is probably the best replacement at a budget level for Flamescale Furnace. And the reason for that being is because you get to block with it for 2, and you need to pay a resource in order for it to gain that +2. Now, obviously, this one is destroyed when the combat chain closes, but you do get to block for 2, and by pitching a red to pay for this on your opponent's turn when you're blocking, you create that ash, which is an important thing. So, you come in here, you play that. Let's just draw 4 more for the sake of it, right? So you block this coming in, and you have to pay a resource in order for this to get its +2. So in that sense, if you have 0 ash, you can then pitch something like Spears of Surreality, right? To give this +2 defense, which will block 2 of this damage, and you make an ash because it is a red card that you pitched for it. So the only difference between this and Flamescale Furnace is that this is destroyed immediately. So after this chain is over, it's destroyed. You can't use its ability to pitch for anything anymore. You're down a blocking equipment piece. It's just not very great. But it is the closest thing to Flamescale Furnace that I could find. So if it is something that you are, struggling to pick up, you can always use the Ironhide Plate in, as a replacement. But this should be, if you're planning on playing Dromai, you really enjoy playing Dromai, this should be the card that you pick up first, okay? Before you even pick up the Blitz deck. That's not true. You should probably buy the Blitz deck first to make sure you like the kind of playstyle. But if you're looking to really build your Dromai game and really make the best Dromai you can possibly play at, this is the card you need to get first. Do not worry about any other card. Don't even start worrying about any of the dragons yet. Get this card, okay? It is necessary for Dromai to play. And I've shown you exactly why it's necessary by all the examples here. You want to have Ash. If you do not have Ash and you run into full hands full of dragons, you cannot even play cards on your turn. You would just need to pass to your opponent, and that would be it, right? That would be the end of it. So this is my PSA to you. Get out there and get yourself a Flamescale Furnace, okay? If you're a fan of Dromai, you love how she plays, you want to summon dragons, you want to be a very powerful hero in that regard, you need Flamescale Furnace, okay? And it's, like I said, this is not the case for every hero. Specifically for Dromai, though, this really changes the level between beginner, basic, awful play Dromais to nearly top tier with just that equipment piece alone. So, like I said, you can bring in the Ironhide Plate if you're looking to possibly get a cheaper budget option while you're trying to save up the cash to buy a Flamescale Furnace. But Flamescale Furnace should be the first thing that you buy if you are playing Dromai. And that's not a hot take. That is something that I think just about everybody agrees on. So thank you all so much for watching. I really hope that you found today's video informative. I really hope you grasp something from this and you realize that it's not just people blowing smoke out of their butt and going, oh, Flamescale Furnace, you only should play it because it's a $130 card and no other reason. It has a purpose. And you see in this video how much this is an effective card for your deck. And it can change the game. If you draw into bad hands as Dromai, you just have to sit there and wait and wait and wait and throw away your dragons and wait and keep waiting. And it's just not worth it. So again, please buy Flamescale Furnace. Please. If you have any interesting replacements for Flamescale Furnace that I may or may not know of, please feel free to leave them in the comments down below. And maybe even tell me about some heroes that also require legendary, equipment. I know Lexi is going to pretty much want New Horizon, which is a headpiece for Rangers. So we very well could be making a video on that later on, but that is a completely different one. So let me know in the comments what you guys think about this. And while you're down there, make sure to like the video and also subscribe to the channel as well if you have not already. I like to bring these little tips and tricks on how to kind of play your hero at the best of your ability. And hopefully I'm giving you good advice, right? I'm sure there's someone out there who's going to tell me I'm wrong, but whatever, right? Anyway, thank you all so much. There's also a Patreon link in the description down below if you wish to support the channel in any monetary sense, but it is absolutely not necessary. So again, thank you, and I will see you all very soon. Nerd out.